This is the Library Channel. Welcome to the Simon Ortiz and Labriola Center lecture on Indigenous land, culture, and community. Presenting Redefining Indigenous Perspectives Through Art and Dialogue with Bob Haozous. Sponsored by the ASU American Indian Studies Program, the Department of English, the American Indian Policy Institute, the ASU Art Museum, the Labriola National American Indian Data Center, the Faculty of History in the School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies, Women and Gender Studies in the School of Social Transformation, the Indian Legal Program in the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, and the Heard Museum.
Gowante, how are you? We always greet each other in order to, I think, establish and confirm the relationships we have with one another, so we can be a hanno, and hanno means people or person. To establish and maintain and confirm relationship is so important, because we are indicating that relationship is helpful to others, to ourselves and to others. Emeheya showetsi anesteti niwo trashkwa trumatsi swami zi sta wakachana chano. When we see each other and greet one another and come to be a part of one another, and we are then more whole and more integral and more able to function and live positively. So when I say go'atzi or kaitawa haupa, that is exactly what is expressed. I'm from Aco, or Acoma Pueblo in New Mexico. Some of you have been there to visit our beautiful land and our home, and people are welcome, there during festivities. To some festivities, of course, are religious and traditionally are restricted to within the inner, not so much circle, but inner community of the Ako Mehano, the Acoma people. Well, thank you also, of course, to all of you for coming here to be a part of this evening. We have our lecture series, the Indigenous Speakers Series, twice a year, once in October and once in March. And our next speaker will be next fall in October, and that would be Ophelia Zepeda, who's a Tohono O'odham linguist, a professor at University of Arizona, and also a wonderful poet. And please come at that time also. Right now, I want us to meet Bob Haozous, who is a good friend, a brother, and an artist who is part of a community that is that has a communal voice, obviously. A communal voice in the sense that our voices are part of each other all the time. And art's voices are so important to us in an everyday sense. Oftentimes we think about art as that beautiful painting or that beautiful sculpture, or something that is famous and acclaimed nationally or internationally, and as well as local. But also art is one of a communal voice. Art is like my mom, my beautiful mom, beloved to us, and she is of course gone, so bless her. But she was a potter, And she never saw herself as an artist, at least not an artist in the sense of American or Western or, well, Western classical art, but someone who made things that were always made within the cultural community of Ago, made from the land, made from the clay that she went to get at this place special to Ago Mehano, where the clay comes from, and mixing it and forming it into a material that she would use then to make the pottery, vases and so forth that Acoma people are known for. But she never saw herself as an artist, and yet, of course, she did beautiful art like artists do. Whether their paintings are on the walls or in the museums and galleries, but the act of art is really working with the land, working with the culture, working with the community, working with the culture. And that's what I think energizes people as a whole. And so with artists like Bob Haozous, a person of this land, a person of this culture, a person of this community. That's the voice that is with us tonight. Obviously, I can't say certain things that he can say for himself, and yet I know that he brings forth with his art, you know, a vision that we all are inspired and I guess formed by, you know. I would like to think that artists are, I know they're not magicians, but the artists are makers or creators of a vision that we are all a part of. It's hard sometimes to describe accurately enough what art is, or to depict or to give meaning to what art actually is. Domeci aneci stwatistani emi ais yu ko temesro aneci goati kait skuaudita nata, with that sense of good thinking and feeling and forming by which we express ourselves and maybe encourage ourselves. With that, we are able to appreciate a life that is positive, you know, something like that. It's a kind of a complex translation. But in the words of the artist, in the acts are the acts that he presents. The words are acts, actually. We heard one word a lot last night when I heard him speak, and then today when I heard him speak also at the ASU on campus in the art department about dialogue. And dialogue is really participation. Dialogue is participation by you, the people, the Hanno, and the participation in what that artist does with your participation, so that we are really in dialogue with that act of art. We are all, in a manner of speaking, artists in the way that we come to form ourselves. But this has to be, you know, done obviously by a person like Bob, but it's possible for all of us to do as well. So without any further words that I may say, I want to present to you Bob Haozous, who is a part of that vision that we need. So with my sincerest welcome, and I hope that you will feel that same welcome, let's welcome Bob Haozous.
You guys are lucky. I laid by the pool today, and it calmed me down and made me sleepy. And then I see all my old friends getting gray and older, and it makes me even tireder, so I won't be aggressive today. My name is Bob Haozous. I'm Warm Springs Chiricahua Apache. My father is Alan Hauser. My mother is Anna Marie Gallegos Hauser. She is from Abiquiu, and my father is from Oklahoma. My grandfather, who you see here, blessed me with a favorite of my 4 brothers at the time, and told me things that were very important to me. This is right before I went to the 1st grade, living on the farm, and my name was Bobby Haozous. I went to the 1st grade, and my teacher sent a note back, and I gave it to my parents. It said, "Please tell your son his name is Bobby Hauser." And so they sat me down and said, "This is your name now. It's just, we've changed, and that's what it is." They didn't explain it. I know it had to do with assimilation, but then they left. And I was just sitting there, what does this mean? And my grandfather walked up to me and he said, "Bobby boy, you'll always be a Haozous." And you know, it's funny, those little things like that, they littlest, simplest things, they touch you. And all your life I've been touched by little things. Am I too close to this thing? Okay. I have a difficult time I had a difficult time claiming it. It's kind of a nonsensical song, so nobody can really interpret it the way I sing it. But the intent was good. But I was in New Zealand back in '90 or so, inspiring them how to make, it's a cottage industry type thing, where you teach them how to make sculpture. And I told them, I don't do that. And they said, "Well, come anyway," because I know how to carve and do all this stuff. I went to art school, so I'm pretty good. So I went, and then they invited me to their ceremonial meeting house, the rib cage of their ancestors, the Morai. And I said, "Well, okay." I was sitting there, and then they said, "Would you speak? You represent the Apache people." And here I was, I'm not elected, I'm not selected to speak, I'm not a politician, I'm not I'm just me. I've been Americanized quite well. And they said, I said, "I can't do it. I can't really represent my people." And they said, "Well, we don't care what you say, because you represent 6 generations of your ancestors." And then meeting Oren Lyons, who said, "You represent the 7th generation. 7th generation is like grass waiting to come out," and he used his hands, waiting to come out, waiting for you to prepare the earth. And that happened about the same time, and I started realizing that's 14 generations. How dare I put my name on my art or claim the hero status of the artist? And it kind of validated what I've been doing for a long time, by sometimes signing art, sometimes not signing it, sometimes not carrying, sometimes getting a piece that's been advertised as really beautiful and tearing it apart and put it on another piece. And because that idea that we of indigenous art, indigenous people, is a holistic we. It not only includes people, but it includes the earth, the air, the water, the food, the soil, the spiritual concepts, non-spiritual concepts. Everything is in the we. Kind of like the Lakota, all my relations, or Apache, I think it's Dana Teke. And so I've been trying to relate to my art in that way, in a communal sense. So in this picture, I love this picture. I just happened to find it a couple years ago, of my grandfather's hand on my shoulder. And it really gives me great pleasure. I'm just going to go through my slides. I selected them kind of in a random order, but somebody else helped me, and who knows what you're going to come up with tonight. Diana Pardu's an old friend, and she knows she's expecting the worst. Go ahead. This is a piece I call Sacred Dig. It was a statement of exposing Mother Earth, mining, archaeology, things that shouldn't be done. Here's a woman who's lost her integrity, perhaps. I'm not even sure what I was doing. Maybe I was just making a female figure and playing, but it really had to do with the sacredness of digging into the earth. Go ahead. I have fun too. This is called Buffalo in Love, and it's been a long time since I don't know what inspired me on this. I think it was trying to make stone float, because for years I've been trying to separate nature from itself, and you'll see later on how some of the other things. All these are interrelated, and I don't know where they come from, except I grew up in northern Utah. I just came to maturity in northern Utah on an Indian school, and I was surrounded by people who could draw and think and laugh. They were some of the most intelligent people I met in my life. And then I watched this disintegration as we became assimilated, and watching all the local kids, the Anglo kids, going to college, going to family business, going to the military and all that stuff. And we just wanted to play football. And all of a sudden alcohol came in. And then we didn't do drugs. I'm sure would have at the time, because it's kind of what happens now. And all of us, our community fell apart. It just really fell apart. And we all went to college on athletic scholarships, and all of us flunked out, and most of us flunked out and joined the military. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I got structure and discipline, and I was living with people of all races. And it showed me something about this concept of being Indian, and how exclusive and precious we've made it when it comes from a much deeper sense. This is called Captive. I think its real title is Indian Slave. It's about I've done a lot of pictures of Indian people who have performed for the audience and claim an identity that is really historic, decorative, and romantic. But when you ask them who they are, like in my tribe, you say, "How are you Apache?" And I've heard one of the guys said, "The warrior blood flows through my veins." And I say, "Well, aren't you part English? You're my cousin." And they don't know what to say. They've never been told that genetics doesn't make culture. It's only a part of it. But even so, the Apaches always adopted people. So all of a sudden, there are contradictions. And it's those contradictions I've been trying to work on, trying to expose those contradictions that I grew up with, and I'm trying to understand even to this day. This is called Freedom Man. I think the wheelwright had it for a while. I don't know where it is now. It's a pretty big piece for the time. At the time, I had carved something. I'd run home and carve it real fast with a pocket knife, then run into a friend who always supported me, Richard Spivey. And no matter what I made, he would sell it, or take it from me and sell it. He made a great profit, of course, but that's acceptable. But one of the things he told me before he passed away was he collected old pots. And he said, the old pots are full of mistakes, but they're real. They have a soul. The new pots are perfect. They're so perfect, but there's no life to them. He said, I've lost my interest in collecting pots because there's no life, there's no real people in the new thing, the new spirit. And he's had a profound effect on me because he's one of the few people I know that I know he would tell me the truth, and he was honest and just a good man. I met a lot of people like him, but he sticks out. But he would have bought something like this. This is about a man who's called Freedom Man. He got a medal respecting his hero status, but what he's doing is he's exposing the mother. Native women were very modest, at least in the Apache tribe, and he's exposing his wife for the medal. But not yet, not yet. Watch my hands, not my nose. He's holding a knife because he doesn't like it, but he succumbed to the pressure from his non-cultural background, non-cultural audience. Okay. I've done a lot of these New Mexico lands. I like doing nudes. You know, there's something fun about it. I don't like doing male nudes because they're too angular, and that's just my opinion. But I like doing female nudes. This is a portrait of a friend of mine who ran a gallery. She's really pretty, really nice, and I just used her face. But I've done a lot of pieces about how we contemporary natives look at the earth as if it is dead. We look at the mountain, and what do? We run and stand in front of it and we take a picture. In fact, I see two little spots right now from a flash camera, and it drives me crazy because they want to see us, our face, and this idea of we instead of me is always contradicted by Indian people because they have to perform. So I did this portrait of her name is Sue, in front of I believe it's the Taos Pueblo. I can't see it from here, but she put herself in front of it in her best dress, and it's really about humanity and not the nature behind her. Okay. This is the same thing. This is a woman called Marilyn. In fact, I think its title is Marilyn. Yeah. A friend of mine was working for my dad as a apprentice, and his girlfriend, I saw her in a restaurant once, and she was gorgeous. She was like a Rossetti woman, absolutely gorgeous. And he came to work for my father. So I said, "Would your girlfriend model for me?" And she came to the studio and modeled for me. She was beautiful, beautiful lady. I said, and she was very shy, and I did a portrait of her because he had told me that she is so beautiful that people only see the surface. They only see they think they can possess. And he told me that sometimes it drives her crazy, and he has to go to the bar and pick her up off the floor and take her home because she's a very intelligent woman. So I equated that to the Mother Earth concept, how we use the earth, we abuse the earth, we destroy the earth. We, all of us, including Native people, are destroying the earth for the me concept. And instead of the 10 little Indians, I have 10 little white men protecting her, keeping that safe. But the key to a lot of my pieces is something in nature that you'd go to reach for, like you'd reach for her. She's available, but the rabbit, you reach for it, and it's going to run away. And I think that nature is going to someday run away from us. That's kind of what it's kind of childish and naive. That's what I've been trying to portray on this piece. This is a piece called New Image. I was amazed at the storyteller concept of one woman did a pot with a woman and children on it, and it was beautiful. She made money, of course, and then because the market was so lucrative, she made another one, and another one, and then more. And then back in 1990 or so, there were 200 people making storytellers. And if you go back to what I said about the men and women I grew up with in northern Utah, the Indian people, this incredible intelligence, what happened to the intelligence of creative problem solving in the arts instead of providing for the market? So I'm trying to talk about that. That's a really beautiful piece. I love these pieces. But people look at it and they see chrome on marble, and, but it sells. And I got my statement and bought my hamburgers. Okay. Puppet Princess. Wow. When I was in school, in high school, junior high, the Indian kids, Indian girls I knew would line up. Navajo, Hopi, Lakota, Ute, just a wide variety of Indian women line up, and they do the Lord's Prayer in Indian Sign Language for the Miss Indian America contest. And it's kind of funny, I think. It's kind of pathetic too, because Apaches didn't use sign language, Navajo didn't use sign. None of these people used it. It was a Plains way of communication, kind of just a language of basic communication. And I did the Puppet Princess based on this idea that the Apache people have a girl ceremony, that transformation from girl to woman. And we need it. We need it for healing, because there's a rebirth of the earth concept. It's a re-healing of the people. They bless people that are ill and give people energy that aren't ill. It's just an essence of Apaches, the girl ceremony. And it's been transferred into this concept of princess ceremony, which is focused on the individual rather than the people itself. Again, me to we. Okay. This is a exhibit in Santa Fe I did about artificial clouds, and the guy who ran the gallery, Dave Reddick, he works with Alan Hauser now, the Alan Hauser business. He let me paint the walls blue, and I painted a whole gallery and put all these clouds in there. And after the show was over, he went back in to paint the walls, and the blue went right through the paint, and he couldn't paint it, and the blue would come back again. It really. He was very angry. And this show is so beautiful, and I didn't sell one piece, not one. They're all still laying in the field by my house, and right now that's great. You know, that's kind of what happens to creative Native people who are challenging stereotypes. So okay, Apache pool toy. That's a fun one. I used to go out shooting with my assistant Paul Evans, who's an Anglo guy. They said, don't work with him, he's crazy. And within a few months, he was like a brother, totally devoted. And we both had guns, so we'd go out and we'd shoot things, shoot sculptures. And on this one, I made an Apache white guy, and we went out and shot it. And you'd be surprised at the response. People come to me and they say, Bob, next time you shoot, can we join you? I mean, there's something about anger and violence. And I've noticed that when I speak up, people think, because my passion and intensity of statement is right there, they think I also, because I'm a native, have very childlike emotions, and I'm expressing anger in my work. But it's not, because Paul was the one who, I'm not sure what he got. Does this guy have a cigarette in his mouth? Can you see? If it does, Paul shot the cigarette. Okay. This is at the British Museum. I had some friends. I said, can I have some of your hair? And a girl from Scotland gave me some. Another lady from California gave me some. And I decided to just take advantage of the myth of the violence and the primitiveness of Apache people, and I made this necklace, and that's in this museum right now. It's all sterling silver, and it was really a challenge. I had these two jewelry students from England help me work on it, and it was really a fun challenge to work with people. And I'm learning to work with people because I'm trying to get more communal, and that was a good start. Okay. This is one you should think, you would think that this would be on top of some major monument somewhere. It's called Woman with Balls. I was out in one of the reservations. It was beautiful, perfect place. I saw some Indian people. I thought, wow, it's all that stuff. It's really nice. I feel good. It's like being at home. And it was like my Buddhist training. That's what it was. I took some Buddhist training, so I was trying to think, what is this thing about this spirituality? I'm trying to understand it. And I was sitting there, and this Rinpoche was sitting there, and they were all praying, and I was sitting there, I was trying to get into this state, and all I could do was watch this fly walking on the window. And I thought, should I be here? Or is that more Apache to be watching that fly and the mountains behind it? And I thought, I should be out there. It's out there that made the Apache people. And so I stopped doing that. And I've been on a long journey. This woman with balls is still in my backyard. No, I have never had anybody, and this was made in the early 80s maybe, late 70s. I had never had anybody ask me the price on it. Okay. You can't really see this, but this is a portrait I did for the Daybreak Star in Seattle, Washington. A national competition, or actually it was a competition amongst Native people. T.C. Cannon got one of the competition. I don't know who the others were, but I was one of them. I carved this big piece of 8 by 12 slab of mahogany. I glued it all together and had it so it could come unbolted. And I did a portrait of Indians performing for white people. And if you can't really see it, maybe you can. There's a whole row of people watching these Indians perform. They said, "We want you to portray the 3 or 4 tribes of New Mexico." And I did a Yebiche, a buffalo dancer, now Apache mountain spirit, and is that the 3 dancers? Those are the basic tribes of New Mexico. And I put corn in there. My dad walked by and he said, "Corn doesn't look like that." Oh, I don't know, and he said, "It needs this and need this," and he really supported me. We had the same studio back in the late 70s, and he was doing his work, he always did mine, and there was never any conflict at all. And I think that's because he knew that he was thinking the same thing, the same generational thing. Your responsibility is a long ways away, and Bob's some next step or something like that. I don't even know. I never asked him. Okay, next. Oh, but one more thing. The masterpiece. That's a joke. I call it the masterpiece because the masterpiece of manipulation of humanity. And one of the people in the audience, I put Mickey Mouse. It's supposed to be a subtlety, but the guides come up and they say, "Now here is Mickey Mouse. It's an example of the artist's sense of humor." And everybody goes, "Ha ha ha," and they walk away. They don't realize that it has a lot of hours and hours of thought and philosophy and concept in that thing. Okay, nice. Ozone Madonna. I went to Dartmouth mainly because my father had gone there and I had friends, and did a artist in residence. And I went into the wood shop and there were these huge planks of mahogany. And I drove my truck and I was thinking, there's something wrong here. It's something environmentally wrong. And so I took this mahogany, and I've done this before. I've taken wood and painted it, beautiful wood, and painted it just to show how we manipulate something beautiful with our images. I did this Mother Earth, or symbol, with a swimming suit on. She's not naked because she's covering her body with rainforest and the cars of the pollution. That's how I got there. And one of the things I did is I put makeup on her. I over made up, and the one little contradiction on this one, the piece of nature, is I gave her armpit hair. And apparently this is one people like. Okay, go ahead. It's the Apache Holocaust. It's 7 generations of adults and children that are dead. In our tribe, we lost our elder system. And now, recently a friend of mine, an artist, came up to me and he said, "Bob, how's it feel? At our age, we're the elders of Indian art." And I've been telling people that we lost our elders. We don't train our children to become elders. We become like them. We're elderly. And so I told him, and his face just dropped because he wanted to be an elder. And another guy came up to me once, and we were doing a big communal project, and he said, first thing he said to me was, "Bob, how old are you?" And he was full of all kind of cultural knowledge and all kind of stuff. It was really based on individualism, I found out later. And I said, "Well, I'm so-and-so age." And his face just dropped. He said, well, I'm younger than you. And then he said, I wanted to be the elder. And it had to do with age rather than wisdom and transference of knowledge and cultural wisdom. It was really a very strange thing that's happened to us. So these are things that inspire me and that's where my art comes from. These contradictions that always leave me saying, what am I doing? What happened to me? Where am I? Okay. This was at the Southwest Museum. It's really an Apache symbol that I tried to change. I put the arms up, put the arms down. It's a big piece, about 8 by 12 or so. I'm not sure how big it is anymore. And so I finally ended up using exactly the same thing they had for, what, hundreds of years, that symbol of the Apache spirit. I couldn't change it. I'm a good artist. I have all the talents, you know, I'm a good designer and all that stuff. I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it better. And here these so-called, primitives, you know, they did something just from their heart, and it was real, and I couldn't do better. So all I could do was bend it and show the pressure of colonialism. And usually the clouds are pollution, not just wonderful clouds. Okay, I can't even see this one. A white man's soul house. I went to a lecture, and this guy said, all over the world, people make little houses, actually house shapes, where they put items for worship, spiritual things. Sometimes they're just holes, sometimes, but usually it's very strange that all over the world they have little houses. And I was thinking, before I get any deeper in trouble here, I'll tell you that white is not a race to me. White is a philosophy. It's a whitewashing, and I've used it all my career. You take something beautiful like nature, like a piece of mahogany, you paint over it, that's whitewashing. And that's the whiteness I'm talking about. So a white man's soul house is really a way of looking at the earth that says the earth is dead. So I made this soul house, and I put a chair inside of it, and with bullet holes, and I put it at the II Museum opening once, and I invited all these dignitaries to paint on it, and they're all in their little, you know, gold lame suits and tuxedos trying to paint, and they know they couldn't paint worth anything. And then I tied it together with sacred colors of my tribe, and it's a beautiful piece, but I'm afraid to put it out. I have another one called Chicken Flag that's about environmental cowardice. And I can't even put that near my front door because, I mean, it's huge. I can't even put it out in my field because I'm afraid some Yahoo redneck's gonna come and start shooting at me. So, nice. This is one that's over here at the Sky Harbor Airport. There are 5 pieces in this series. They're all based on Hohokam symbols, except this one. This is a Greek raven that I'm trying to show this some kind of parallel between how we glorify the Greek thinking, but indigenous thinking is every bit as powerful and meaningful as anything that comes from Western man. This is another that I'm afraid to put out. It's about a man who's, it's called Portable Warrior Memorial. It's an anti-war piece. It's a portrait of all the people this man has killed with, from long distance, remote control. He has a German machine gun, and he's this, it's just about the travesty of how we in America think we're superior to the rest of the world. And if they disagree, we kill them, usually for resources. So a lot of my work has really some pretty heavy-duty personal opinions, and I'm sure I'll get some questions later, but that's what art does. It inspires a response. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, this is a very funny one. Mother Earth possibly had its roots in Celtic beliefs, possibly much farther back in Egypt or wherever. And so I decided I'm going to get all the Mother Earth concepts and put them together. And then I'm going to explain it very clearly in the language of gibberish, because it doesn't make sense. We all should have the same Mother Earth. That's basically what it is. Again, it's very naive and silly, but I really have fun doing these things because it comes from me today. Like I'm here right now. I'm not Apache warrior from the past. I'm certainly not in the future. I'm right here, and I'm full of flaws and mistakes and silliness, but and anger, maybe not anger, no, passion. But I'm trying to put all my feelings into my work rather than just saying we are romantic, decorative, and historic. I'm trying to say, hey, we're here. We have child suicide problems. We have alcohol problems and drug problems. We have violence problems. We have loss of our philosophical core problems. Why aren't the arts talking about it? You know, why aren't the arts talking about that? Well, the market doesn't want it. The market wants. As when I was a little kid, I was growing up in California. My whole family used to laugh at this. There's a neighbor lady who had a little boy, and every day she would tuck him in, brush him off, and straighten him out. Then she'd say, "Okay, Johnny, play pretty." And my family would just laugh at that, you know, play pretty. And we're from Oklahoma. You play in the dirt. Okay. This is just a piece. It's kind of, I'm not thinking in that line now. It's been a long time since I made it. It's again, it's in my, most of these are in my I hate to say collection. They're usually stacked up or laying around somewhere in my yard or my family business yard. But I put them out and they've been in public display, and nobody ever asked the price because they're not what they're familiar with. They don't want Indian people, or maybe they don't understand how Indian people can actually have their own personal vision or their concepts, except within the framework of the market. This is a competition I won, a national competition for the city of Seattle. The Kingdom was right there, so they took us out there and they imploded it with dynamite, so it crushed on itself, and they wanted a piece. And I decided to make a piece about the four directions, the four colors of the Apache colors, and the accumulation of people, the dissolving of a tribal sense, and then eventually end up with an Apache or an indigenous concept of we are all one. So it's a complex piece, and it's up there right now. If you ever go to Seattle, look at the new stadium and you'll see it. It's a beautiful piece. And the only response I got from the public was, it looks like a CD cover, or a CD, which is okay too. Yeah, I don't have to explain it to everybody. Go ahead. Okay. Simon can explain this one about Acoma and Onyate and the absolute hell that the Spaniards inflicted on those people. I can't space too much about it because it's his story. But I will say that Cristobal Colon, a distant relative of Columbus, came to Santa Fe, and here he is with all the prestige of genetic pride, and was visiting the town there, whining and dining him and all kind of stuff. And then finally one of my friends, he took him over in front of this sculpture and he posed, and he was so proud. He doesn't realize those are the hands and feet of the people that the Onyate cut off of the people from Acoma before they threw them off the cliff. And they're flying in the air, falling from the cliff. And this big man with this symbol of power, which remember the concept of power. His symbol of power is of death. But anyway, it was somebody spray painted culture rapists. Some kid who actually agreed with me, but couldn't spell culture. And I love that too. It's kind of faded away now, and that's in my property too. Nobody ever asked the price on that. That was up at the Flagstaff for a long time. Okay. Madonna. A friend of mine posed for this, and I parallel it to the Christian concept of Madonna. And this is just a good friend who believes, supports me. It's much more complex than that, but I don't want to say anything because it's all kind of a questionable politics and racial and sexual politics involved in this. Okay, go ahead. I don't want to get in trouble. Oh, this is the one that Paul shot the cigarette out of his mouth. This is the Vanishing White Man. I did a whole show of the Vanishing White Man. And some of these shows were successful. The ones that are the successful ones are the ones where people leave thinking. And I've been getting more and more into that. How do you get people to think? Not to buy, because I survive. How do you get them to think? And that's the art. Art is the potential of being a catalyst for thought and not making a product like this. And that's what happened to Native people. They started making products rather than conceptual ideas or healing ideas or sharing ideas or ideas that would really challenge what was or what is. Okay. This is a show in Germany. I spent a month in Frankfurt. I got my gallery there got me a grant. I brought 3 friends and 2 girls. One of the girls from Scotland came, a guy from Switzerland, Paul and a guy from Turkey who was in a factory. And we did a whole show of dead trees, the apple palm tree. It's about how Germany, even though they have this wonderful relationship with nature, they're killing their own black forest, and they're killing the Scandinavian forests. And you bring it up, and they get angry, because look, it's like the Norwegians the same way. They're really wonderful people, environmental, but there's a certain point where they justify the North Sea oil issues, and they don't want to talk about it. In fact, the Prime Minister came up to me, and she ran at me and put her hand in front of the camera, and she said, "Who told you? Who told you to say that?" And it was a cameraman told me, but I didn't tell her that. I said, well, I didn't say anything, because I didn't know the depth of that problem, but she did. But her job was to make sure they got their oil. Okay, next. Oh, it's just about extinction, our potential extinction. This one, I don't even know where this piece is. Okay. Border crossing. This is about how we draw these artificial lines around ourselves, racial, political, economic, well, sometimes actual barriers that separate other people from us, and we decide that they have an inferior way and they're going to pollute our way of living, and we don't think of them as equal human beings. And so I did several pieces about separation. Separation of humanity by whatever means we want to decide to use. Okay. One side is beautiful. The other side is full of bullet holes and airplanes, all the symbols of horror. And the barrier is the wire. And this is a beautiful piece. Weighs about 8,000 pounds. And it's been in major shows, several major shows. And that's in my backyard, laying there, waiting for some sweet person to take it home. Okay. This was done for San Diego, a national competition. They asked me to do a piece for the border crossing, Otay Mesa. And I did this piece. They asked me to do a coco pally. And I said, okay, I don't usually do what they suggest, but I thought that'd be kind of fun. But I did a coco pally with pollution coming from its stomach. That's the birth that the modern coco pally is producing. And you can see that the car is going back and forth, and the clue on this one is the little scribe. He knows he's recording it, but he's helpless. You can see him on the right, and the Mexican eagle is kind of disheveled eagle on the left. And what was funny on this one is, as you know, with public art, there's always somebody who gets a little kind of scared. And he said, well, what if somebody comes and graffitis this, Bob? And I said, well, what do you do? And he said, can you wrap the support post with razor wire to keep it from climbing up there? And I said, well, you want me to put razor wire on it? And he said, yes. Okay. So I contacted these Hispanic artists in San Diego through friends, I said, you guys want a job and put some razor wire on my piece? And he said, yeah, why not? And I said, okay, put razor wire on this piece where you want. And they went and they draped it like a halo all over on the top. And so people could actually, if they wanted to, climb the tree and destroy it if they wanted. But it's really fascinating that they asked me to do that, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't do something that would hurt people. I mean, that's just absolutely wrong. But they were willing to hurt people to protect the art. It's kind of like that's what the bears are all about in the first place. Okay. Well, after a conflict with the UNM, I'll show you that in a minute, I decided I said, what is this America? We talk about the freedom and the arts and the cultural differences, and yet censorship hit me hard, and it really destroyed my career. It's still affecting my career. I'm kind of portrayed as being angry and selfish and childlike in my emotions and stuff. So I did this piece called Gate in a Gate. It's about the doorway that we can open in the border. And it has symbols of all the different races in the door. And I decided I'm going to paint the names of the extinct tribes on the bottom. So I got, from Suzanne Harjo, I got a list of the extinct tribes. It's fairly accurate. And I got, in front of the public, I got the paint out and started painting these names over and talking to people and see what they thought. And people just didn't have any idea that these tribes, they said, who are these tribes? You know, they're so beautiful. And they're trying to say the names. I said, oh, these are all extinct tribes. And they go, what? And somebody said, why do you have Iowa on there? And it's just an education about how our education system is failing us. We don't even know our own history. Okay. This is the one that caused the lawsuit. It's called Cultural Crossroads of the Americas. I won a national competition for this. It was really about honoring the cultural crossroads that Albuquerque was, were a trade crossroads. And so I did a piece about the border, about the separation, about the dominance of one people over another, economic superiority, on and on and on. It's about the journey from indigenous beliefs or philosophy to the north, where the philosophy is based on economics and not the living earth. And so you can see the woman on the left is a weaver, and from her mouth, and whether or not the Aztecs meant this or not, I'm not sure, because it was an early book on the codices. From her mouth came the birth of the baby, the child from the earth. And the child of the earth walks down the plumed serpent to the north, being blessed by the priestesses on the journey. And when he gets to the north, or she gets to the north, she comes to the barrier of the border, and it's one of those, I can't say it, the factories, and the smoke is going and filling the air. In America, what is there? Well, it's all the symbols of economic might. The dollar sign, the end of the trail cowboy, which is a little twist I threw in there. McDonald's, the dollar sign, the symbol of individualism, of the Statue of Liberty. And right at the last, I said, it's just going to be a rectangle. It's going to be ugly, and I've done this before. The university accepted my pieces with razor wire on it before. And I decided I'm going to have to put the razor wire on it, because it is a border. And what's good about it is the architectural designers put a crossroads underneath where the path actually can transcend this barrier. And so right at the last, I started putting the wire on, and the museum director, who was always kind of an antagonist to me, he came up and he says, I'm trying to tie my thoughts to this wire. And I said, well, grab some pliers and some gloves, and the wire will tie itself to you. And then the next day, he said, you have to take the wire off because you broke the contract. And the contract clearly said, and New Mexico had a wonderful contract, state contract with the artist, to have freedom. They could come in and use your studio anytime they want, if they wanted to. Just had to contact you. And then my studio was always open. But he said that little clause said, you broke the contract. And he got the university behind us. It's a state university. The state got behind it. I had a 4-year lawsuit with them, and I lost. I lost because at the very end they said, we're going to not pay you the last payment, which was long gone, and we're going to take it down and hide it, and you'll never see it again. So I assumed, again, I made a mistake. I thought the public would realize that this is cultural censorship. It's a racial issue. And I'm going to let the public deal with this because I'm an artist. I'm a catalyst. Let them be responsible for what they see. And so I took the wire off, and the university said, you can't have any public thing, no cameras, nothing. They were terrified of me. I'm a little guy. So I took it down, and so far there's been no response. It's that way now without the wire. So I always show it with the wire and show you how it was really one man who couldn't tie his thoughts to the wire, unfortunately, but he was white. I say white because it has nothing to do with his race. He had that idea that I was inferior and angry. He's the one that branded me as angry and greedy, and I really learned a lot. I mean, I have no hard feelings to this because I think that it's, like I say, art is a catalyst, and I did my job, and now it belongs to the public. And so I drive by and I still love it, even without the wire. It's a good piece. I did a series of drawings about, someone told me that, about the Great Mystery. And I've really developed my own philosophy on that, or maybe redeveloped the philosophy about how faith is good, but it's restrictive. But sometimes the mystery creates problem solving. And the story goes back to my grandfather and my father working on a farm. And my dad was a teenager, and they're working on a piece of broken farm equipment. I'm sure a lot of you heard this story, but I'll tell you anyway. All day in Oklahoma sun, in the middle of summer, it's just difficult. And my dad was getting tired. And this is why I think that problem solving is so important. The Apache people lived in the most difficult areas. It was hard to survive, and yet they thrived and had this beautiful culture, beautiful language, very expressive, very meaningful, that tied to their, everything was about prayer and continuance and the cycle and the colors and the fact that this is heaven here, not somewhere else. Okay, my father and my grandpa are out on a farm working on this thing, and finally they heard my grandma ringing the dinner bell in the evening. The sun was going down, and my dad said, "Pop, let's just quit. Let's get a new one. We can't fix it. It's just, we tried everything." And my grandfather, who had been on the warpath with Geronimo, warpath, what a weird word. He'd been out with Geronimo and the Apache people. He knew who he was as an Apache man. He said, "Son," he said, "we found 3 or 4 answers to these problems. We tried 3 or 4 and they failed. There are 1,000 answers out there waiting for us." And that's just another inspiration that just sticks with me. But this is the dialogue about that issue. Okay. I'm a Chine, I'm a red paint people from central New Mexico, around by Socorro. And there's a spring that's a warm springs, where the warm springs Apache. Chi is red, and Ine is the people. The warm springs is from that area, the red paint. It's right next to this, it's like a mineral deposit. And you go up there sometimes, and there are hippies up there and families up there. It's hard to get to, but somehow they get to, and they're in this pool and communing with nature. And so I bought a swimming pool once for my kids. I don't think you even know about this. I bought a swimming pool, and on the box cover was this family sitting in the pool in their bikinis and things, very sexual too, very sexy, kind of provocative. And so I took those people and put them in this warm springs, this sacred site, and to show that, what has happened to our sacredness on this earth. Okay, this is I have fun with my drawings. This is immigrants. This is inspired by a portrait of Bosnian immigrants. They were dislocated from their environment, their earth, and they're sitting waiting for removal to somewhere else. And I thought, if I put Indian stuff on them, how would you know the difference? And so I gave the guy all the Indian stuff, and the woman the feathers, and it's just about we are all one. As Roxanne Swinzel said, you breathe in the air, you expel it, and you share it. That's our humanity. That's the we. The me is you think you own it. That's what happened to the native people now. We're becoming assimilated into a way that actually kills the earth. Okay, this is about Bishi, my dog Bishi, and Piter. Bishi and Piter, the Piter's the little white one. Well, first of all, Geronimo was just a man. When he died, as one of my friends said, we sent him away dead. He's not a ghost, he's not an icon, and even Geronimo was a nickname that came from the outside. Okay, I use it as a symbol of what happened when Piter, the little white one, got eaten by coyotes. And well, I'm getting lost on this because it's so meaningful. The balance, it had to do with balance and how Bishi died too, because the balance was gone. But I'll have to think about this one because it's too emotional for me to get into right now. This is called the Douye. We all call him now as Victorio. And I put him in a kind of a new age pose, a yoga pose. And it's really what we made of him. We don't know the man. We know he was a wonderful man in our tribe, and he had a sister named Lozen, which I named my daughter after. But and so I have a huge dialogue. I just sat down and started writing right off the top of my head about what I was thinking about what happened to Indian people and how we've co-opted our own history and made it decorative and pretty, and we don't know how to get into the depth of our cultural philosophy anymore. But it's always there. I'm not really sure what this is about. It's just buffalo meat. Okay, I'll run through these faster. This is a positive and negative of everything. I'm going to run through these pretty fast just so you can look at the images. Separation, about the separation of nature, taking the earth and moving it up, taking the clouds and making a female out of it. We've manipulated the Mother Earth concept. In the last 5 years, I'm trying to find power. I'm trying to define power. Apaches had power. Indian people have power. It's not the power of the sword like Oñate. It's another kind of power. What made us have power? A child was born and you could tell what their life was where their life might be going. As you watched them, you gave them a name because of that power. You gave them a piece of lightning wood on their cradle board to protect them on their journey, or muskrat, or teeth, or something, some kind of grass or feathers, protect them and guide them toward their power. My tribe lost its power. They may say they're tough, they may say they have genetic warriorhood in their bloods, but they really don't. They've lost their power. And so I decided as an artist, I'm going to try to inspire that questioning of what is our power, how do we get it back, how do we give it to our children, instead of saying that I'm an elder because I'm 68 years old, or I went in the military, the US government, so therefore I'm a warrior. So that's debatable. Why not debate it? So I made these clubs, and I have 45 of them that are going to be at the Swinzel Gallery, the Tower Gallery in Milwaukee. And Roxanne is right there with me. She's got her own things, her environmental issues. And I told her, Roxanne, I want to do a show. She asked me to do a show. I said, I want to do a show of my power sticks. She said, good. And I said, they're not for sale. They're made to engage the viewer. So when the viewer leaves here, he has the idea in their mind. And it's the height of the tourist season, the height of the market. And I said, nothing's going to be for sale. And she said, okay. And so this whole show is going to be up for 3 months in Santa Fe. And can you turn to the next one? Next one. And that whole idea of power came from this piece. In our tribal museum in Fort Sill, or in Apache, Oklahoma, they opened a drawer and there was this beaded cane that Geronimo had commissioned from tribal members to inspire an economic return for the tribal members. And this one was bought, and there were others basically like this. And it was just laying there with beads falling all over the place. And they said, oh, it's just Geronimo's cane. And I looked at it, and all my research, I've been researching Apache people for a long time and talking to people, and I realized this thing has incredible historic document of the designs, the colors, the meaning behind the colors. Even has an old 4570 shell in the bottom for the hitting the ground. Then it has all kind of, it's just full of beauty and power from what I could feel. And so I commissioned one of the tribal members to make one exactly right, exactly like it. And I have that. It's going to be a part of my power show. And that's where I'm going now. I've been spending 5 years working on these things, and it's tedious, and each one grows. And I finally do one, I love it, and I put it aside, and I come back and say, no, it has to go farther, because I want all of my heart in these things. And when you see the show, it might just be this weird show of these weird things, because nothing is Apache. Because I'm sure anthropologists and art historians would say, it looks Apache, it's got all the symbols, but I don't see a parallel, except this one. What are you talking about? But the reality is, like Simon and I both agree, we are here. We have to define ourselves today, not by their books, or even romance or decoration, or even objects. We have to make our own objects. The objects are not made to sell, they're made to inspire dialogue. That's the power of art. And maybe it's not even a thing that's an object. Maybe it's the inspiration itself as a definition of what art should be for a indigenous man. And that's where I'm trying to go. I maybe not making any sense, but I sure am having fun. Okay? Oh, that's what I have to show.